So my resume reads kind of like a rap sheet. 2 years in Florida at an alternative school for girls, 3 years working child protection in inner city Dublin, 2 years in an inpatient psych hospital, then got transferred back to Chicago for 6 years in a pediatric ICU, 4 years in private practice. That's kind of like time off for good behavior. I'm a social worker and a mental health clinician, and for almost 20 years, I've had hard jobs. Capital H, capital J. These are the kind of jobs where people look at you with a mix of respect, pity, and confusion, and they tilt their heads and they say things like, wow, that must be such a hard job. Thank God we have people like you. I don't know how you do it. That slow head shake, the sigh. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You've all said that to someone. Yeah. But after 2.5 years of living and working in a global pandemic and trying hard to hold space for my clients, I still love my job. I've always loved my jobs. That actually irritates my husband to no end. He's always like, who loves their job? What is that? But I do. And so these jobs themselves have been varying degrees of hard, sad, overwhelming and inspiring, beautiful and chaotic. But the common threads that have kept me engaged, committed, and in love with my hard jobs have been the people. The power of connection, shared experience, and common humanity are the secret ingredients when it comes to well-being at work, even in the hardest of jobs. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Amy, what are these relationships that we need to cultivate for this magic recipe that you speak of? First, we need the work wife who knows everything. Now, I use that term loosely, okay? Your work wife can be any gender. You might have more than one. You could be a work pod or a work pack. It's a reciprocal relationship full of give and take. And the important element of a great work wife is that they get you, right? This is your person. They understand what you actually do all day, which is a big ask for some of us. You have a shorthand, an unspoken agreement. They know what it means when you raise an eyebrow, heave a sigh, or give them the look. They celebrate with you when you win, and they're there to commiserate and help you pick up the pieces when you lose. They know how you take your coffee, and more importantly, when you need it most, right? These are the people who show up for you day in and day out. Now, I know in a post-pandemic world, it can be hard to cultivate these types of relationships. It takes a lot of intention, but it's worth every ounce of effort to experience that level of work-wife support. We definitely had a work-wife pack at the Children's Hospital. So our crew covered ICU, oncology, pulmonary, epilepsy, gen med. These were the kids that were critically ill, couldn't breathe on their own, weren't going to survive. The kids with seizures, eating disorders, abuse and neglect allegations. It was rough, right? Like even on a good day. So officially, our collaboration was meant to cover each other's services when someone was off work. But unofficially, these were my people. I will never forget coming back to my desk after a really hard end-of-life situation and finding a hot coffee, a giant donut, and a Post-it note that said, hey, Aim, all of your consults have been done. Huge gift. We would find each other in the halls just to give a hug on a hard day. The gag gifts and celebrations were epic, and we had an incredible ability to send and receive covert eye rolls during town hall meetings. And when the work was hard, because it was, or someone's personal life was falling apart, because it did, the others were there to help pick up the pieces, one hot coffee, giant donut, or eye roll at a time. That's the relationship that really creates space for emotional connection and that sense of safety and care. The next relationship we need to cultivate is the client who knows you as a human being. Easier said than done. So, in the field of therapy, there's this ongoing debate about whether and how much of yourself to share with your clients. And the answers range from Freud's opinion that the therapist should be opaque to the client, like a mirror, to the humanistic concept that you don't need, that it's not just acceptable but necessary to have that relationship with your client, to have a genuine and authentic connection. This is not just a therapist question anymore. We've all been struggling with childcare, illness, Zoom meetings, remote learning, walking our dogs, snacks. Our work lives and our home lives have blended into just lives. So should you let your client see you as a whole person with flaws and challenges? Will your credibility suffer if your client knows that you're struggling under the weight of parenting a toddler? Or will they feel a sense of camaraderie if you show up for your next Zoom meeting with a less than fresh face, a very large coffee, and a story about the chaos of the morning routine? Trust, connection, and authenticity are always the answer. Because when your client knows you as a human, it's more than a transactional interaction, right? You gain an understanding about how your work, value, and impact makes a difference in the world. And your clients gain an appreciation for things like boundaries, realistic expectations, and accountability. The relationship itself becomes a tool for well-being. So one winter, I was moving a 16-year-old from Dublin to Glasgow to a residential facility. And needless to say, he did not want to go to Glasgow, but he'd run out of options. Now, he'd gone through lots of social workers in his life, and I was just one more in the list, but I was committed to building a relationship with this kid. So every week I would show up, whether it was visiting hours at the detention center or organizing a day out for him and his siblings. Week after week, whether he wanted to see me or not, there I was. And over time, we started to get to know each other. He was interested in what life was like in America. Mostly, is it like Jersey Shore? I was interested in what he wanted for his future. And over time, we built some trust. But still, on the day we left for Glasgow, I was 99% certain that this kid was not coming. He was running away. That was how this day was going to end. So in the taxi, every time we stopped at a red light, I held my breath. Going through security at the airport, waiting outside the toilets for him before boarding the flight. The chances of this kid going to Glasgow without a fight felt slim. So before we got on the plane, I said, hey, once we get on the plane, we're really doing this, right? Like all the way to the new house? Because if we have an in-air incident, or I lose you on the streets of Glasgow, I will definitely get fired. Possibly deported. He gave me the smallest smile, but I stopped holding my breath. That's the kind of relationship that makes space for impact and meaning in your work. Finally, we need to connect with the leader who listens to understand. Burnout is rampant, and I can almost hear you all thinking, that's her big news? People are burned out? Okay, so it's not news, but it is important and it's worth our attention. Because especially in the hard jobs, people are struggling. We know that folks are feeling bitter, bored, resentful, and this is not a gorgeous combination for success at work. We also know that a lack of autonomy, support, and meaningful work are some of the worst culprits when it comes to unhappiness. So whether you're a leader or an employee, this is the relationship that makes that space to cultivate growth, self-determination, and success. If you're a leader, you can create space for your teams to try new things, make mistakes, and stretch beyond their comfort zones. You can ask the hard questions and take a genuine interest in the answers. You can find ways to support your people as they grow into those next versions of themselves. Employees can be brave and open in conversations with their leaders, right? You can ask for what you need. You can say no to what you don't. You can take an honest and sincere account of your own strengths, challenges, goals, and dreams. And then you can practice vulnerability by sharing those with the people who have the power to get you where you're going. After 6 years, I had to leave my job at the Children's Hospital. I was depleted. My emotional nervous system was disconnected. I was angry, irritable, on edge. I wasn't any version of myself that I wanted to be. So it was time for a change. And I came to Urban Wellness, where I work now, for a nice, calm, quiet life as a therapist. And after 1 year of this nice, calm, quiet life, I went to my boss and I said, Dana, I'm bored. I know, right? Bored. After all that, I was bored. But she listened. She created space for me to talk about what was missing, what would energize me, what kind of work would feel more meaningful and creative. She wanted to hear my big ideas, and I felt brave enough to share them. And we worked together to create a role that would support my development, my growth, things that would feel innovative and exciting and challenging for me. And so because I spoke up and because she listened, my work does not feel flat. My work feels amazing. And I love my job because the work is rich and juicy, but more so because I felt supported to flourish. So when I think of how I've been able to not just survive, but thrive in all of my hard jobs, these relationships are the answers. They push us to keep going, and they give us permission to rest. They teach us about our limits and our boundaries. They help us to feel valued as whole people with gifts and flaws. So when you all go back to work on Monday, I want you to do 3 things. First, buy a colleague a cup of coffee and remember how they take it. It could be the start of a beautiful work marriage. Next, tell a client something funny or even a little bit embarrassing about something that's happened to you at home recently. Let them see you. And finally, in your next conversation at work, just listen. That's a hard one. For a couple of minutes, I just want you to pay attention without planning a response or crafting a fix. Because holding space for people to feel seen, heard, and understood is a leadership superpower. The future of well-being at work is bright in the right hands, and I trust those hands are yours. Thank you.